Some tricks of the succubus. Well, from my experience, the main things that the succubus do, first of all, is always about sex, right? There usually isn't anything more than sex in the relationship. And I think this is a temptation for younger guys, because younger guys are looking for sex and women know this. So what women do is they utilize sex in order to sort of tempt the guy into either a relationship or tempt the guy into, biting the bait to pedestalize her, right? Which, what is their motivation there? Their motivation there is validation. They want, kind of worship. They want a man to sort of worship them in a way, right? And women are very adept at this. They're very adept emotionally to sidestep, what guys usually fall into, which is a sort of infatuation with the opposite sex, an infatuation with one person, because, when you take the red pill and you realize that this blue pill narrative, that there's true love out there, there's one person out there for you, right? You realize at some point that that's kind of phony, that female nature doesn't really work like that, right? That women are attracted to certain things that are sort of transient in nature, which one could argue that they're biological imperatives. However, at the end of the day, those things there's no inner essence to, to a lot of the things that women are attracted to. That's not to say that no women ever find real love, or no men ever find women for real love. It happens. I just don't believe it happens as much as people think. I think that it happens how it usually happens, how it mostly happens, is through a sort of exchange, a financial exchange for, intimacy or resources for sex, if you will. Okay. And you could surmise and extrapolate that the intimacy there could be considered some kind of love, or it could be considered some kind of physical bond, or it could be considered some kind of emotional connection, pair bonding, what have you. But it's usually, almost always in every case, contingent and based upon the fact that the male is providing resources. So if you subtract the resources from the equation, the woman usually will not stick around, because her hypergamy will kick in, that part of her that needs security will kick in, right? So this is all, related to female nature. But when it comes to the succubus, it's usually a woman who hasn't hit that point yet, and she's still playing around with guys who are kind of considered loser guys who are, bad boys or whatever, but they don't really have their stuff together. They're not career men. They're not manly men, masculine men, in the sense that, in the definition of, one popular definition of masculine men, which would be, these providers, these guys who work a job and they're providing for a family. This is a pretty popular definition for what a real man is, right? So they haven't hit that point yet where they're looking for that guy, which again, if you go into the details of what that means, it means he's providing resources, and in exchange, she's giving him intimacy and sex, and probably offspring, and she's keeping house for him, right? So this is sort of a traditional role. However, again, when you break it down, it is hypergamy. However, when you break it down, it is, when you take a full red pill, you start to look at it as if it's a form of prostitution, because it's an exchange of goods, which is sex, from a woman, and this is why women won't have sex so readily and so easily with any guy, because they know that this is what they have to barter with. This is their commodity, is sex, right? So when you look at it, that type of traditional relationship, it really is an exchange of the goods, which hopefully aren't too used, but nowadays that's been bastardized and that's been distorted to the point where, I shouldn't say bastardized, that's not the right word, but it's been distorted to the point where it's okay now if a woman sleeps around, she's not used goods, because we have this SJW PC culture where like people can sleep around and it doesn't have anything to do with, they don't consider it immorally wrong, they don't consider it bad as far as, oh, you could be a total slut and still get married and find love and have kids and live happily ever after. Whereas, traditionally, hopefully the girl would be pure, and by the time, she hit a ripe old age of 20, 25, she'd be ready to marry, and she wouldn't have slept with the whole town, right? And this is, traditional, but that's been distorted now with these new atheist ideals and these liberal, immoral, BS. So we know now that by the time, she hits that point where she's like, oh, okay, I'm done chasing these bad boys, I'm done chasing these guys because I think they're cool or this or that, these outward personality reasons, which actually in a way technically is better than, some of the reasons that I mentioned before, exchanging resources. All the guys offers resources. Well, at least before, she was chasing guys for their personality somewhat. I would, even though it's hard to say that a bad boy, has a personality, but it's a type of character. It's a type of anti-hero, right? When you get the anti-hero narrative where the guy, he's a leader, he's a hero type, but he's kind of anti because he's not your traditional white knight, play by the rules type of guy. He's an anti-hero. So he has strong masculine traits, or he has strong traits, personality traits, but he's anti, so he's going against the grain, right? And this is oftentimes where a problem arises with these young women, is they get into these relationships that are with these anti-hero bad boy type guys, and then they get mad that that's what attracted them in the first place, and then they get mad that the guy's not playing by the rules eventually, or they get mad that he's not fulfilling that white knight role, and then eventually they leave and go find this other white knight type of hero, right? For their resources and to be their providership, etc., to give them offspring, to protect them and give them security. And this is what often happens. However, a lot of times these young women, they use these tactics, these claw-like ploys of seduction in order to get these bad boys, in order to suck these bad boys in, because they don't just want to sleep with the bad boys. They want to sleep with the bad boys, but they also want to own the bad boys, because women are possessive and they're emotional in the way that they have sex. Generally, women don't have sex in the same way men have sex, which is just visually, I like somebody. Visually, I'm sexually attracted to that person. Visually, everything is a green light, so I'm going to go ahead and have sex with that person. No, women need an emotional connection. So they need to be emotionally connected. There needs to be something about the guy's personality that attracts them emotionally. And then when they're emotionally set, and when they're emotionally, they have the green light as well as physical, right? Then they want the guy, then they want to chase him. However, because their emotions are involved, they often get clingy, particularly in the initial stages. So what they'll do in order to keep the man around is they'll be seductive, and they'll be coy, and they'll be, they'll use different sort of succubus type of methods in order to not only test the guy to see if he's weak, and he'll put her on a pedestal, and he'll lose his bad boy frame, and he'll come into a sort of infatuation with her. And then when that happens, she gets bored because she doesn't want to be the prize. Well, they obviously all think they are the prize, but she wants him to be the prize for her. So from her point of view, she wants him to be the not caring, and she wants him to, give her, like, say 20% of his attention, and the rest of his attention is on himself, because that's just attractive to women. They don't like it when all your attention is on her, because then she's the prize, and then she loses interest. She's like, well, geez, I thought I had a winner here, but he just keeps, putting me up and pushing me up. Some women like that, but it's rare. Some women genuinely like to be treated like they're really loved and really, but it's usually rare. And oftentimes these women, you know, maybe they come from an abusive background or something. Like it's funny how twisted it is, because it's like the worst background they come from, oftentimes the more they need love, which is normal to need love. But it's like if they come from these good backgrounds, oftentimes the girls that I've met, when they come from good backgrounds, they're more messed up than girls who come from bad backgrounds. It's weird how that, it's like, because when a girl comes from a bad background, it makes her more normal, but when she comes from a good background, she's more abnormal. It's a weird phenomenon. I guess, you know, there's something to be said for gynocentrism in that equation as well, in that definition there, or in that description, that illustration. But you know, if she's twisted that way, and she wants you to be the prize, a lot of times what she's going to do is she's going to test you, and then also what she's going to do is she's going to use sex as a method to get you attached, use sex as a method to get you into a relationship, and then she's going to test you some more. And if you don't keep your frame, if you don't keep that bad boy frame, if you don't keep that you know, sort of higher lower push pull status between you and her, masculine feminine frame, if you will, although that concept has been distorted, then she's going to leave you, right? So what does a succubus do? What are some things that succubuses do? They lie, they say certain things at certain times, they test you, and they can tell. Women have it's like a different, you know, if you put goggles on or you put sunglasses on, there's like a different hue that they have, and they can see things that we can't see. They see things on a different kind of level. They can size you up. They can sense things about you. Is he weak? Does he have a strong frame? Is he energetic? Is he have a strong personality? Does he have a strong character? These are the things they can sense about us, right? And they know that they might know that we're weak in some ways. They might know, and they might sense it, and you can tell along the way. So what are some things they do? They build you up and give you no base, and then they pull the rug out from under you at a certain time when you're at your weakest, right? They lie, obviously, but how do they lie? They lie in certain ways, such as making you think that they're in love with you, making you think that you're, you know, they sort of pump you up. They basically gaslight you, right? They gaslight you, which means that, you know, they make you feel like you're super close with them when you're not really that close with them. They make you feel like you're more connected to them when you're not really that connected with them. They make you feel like they care about you more than they actually do in order to get something from you, right? So even though on the one hand they might be looking for a long-term relationship, if you keep your frame, on the other hand, they're setting up certain scenarios, saying certain things at certain times. They can sense when you're weak, so they'll know when to say certain things at certain times or do certain things at certain times in order to sort of break you down, right? Now, someone had a concept about this, and he called it beta eyes. Women will try to beta eyes men, meaning they will try to psychologically and emotionally see how much they can reduce you in order to sort of test you. This is sort of a long-term test, but I also believe this is what a succubus is. Now, on the one hand, you could say it's a test. On the other hand, you could say this is what a succubus does. And I'm leaning more towards it's what a succubus does. Yes, she's testing you, but she's also testing you in a way that's sort of, it's not right. You know what I mean? It's not right in a moral sense. It's not ethical the way that they do that. And you can say, you know, people will argue, well, you know what, that's just biology, Yeah, but maybe. But you could say that biology is evil. You could say that if you bring ethics into it and morality, that is actually technically evil. And then it's like, well, what kind of kids do they raise? What kind of society do we live in? And then you have to look at the bigger picture and say, is this really something that is normal or natural or positive or anything like that? It's like, hey, if you are chasing a bad boy, what do you expect? If you're putting sex first, what do you expect? If you are getting into a sexual relationship with somebody before you really love that person, before you really build up a positive bond with that person, you could surmise technically that that's evil, or at least at very least it's folly, it's foolish to do, because you're developing a soul tie, you're developing a pair bond in your emotions, right, with somebody who you might not should be with, or somebody who somebody who might be gaslighting you, somebody who might be using you, somebody who might be lying to you fundamentally, somebody who might be, you're just a spinning plate to them. You're just one of the many guys that they're seeing, or you're an option and she has backup options, or she's not being fully honest with you that she doesn't really love you as much as she makes it out, or she doesn't really want to be with you, be with you as much as she is, as even though you have chemistry or whatever and a fun time, she might not really be fully 100% for you as you're fully 100% for her, right? So these are things that women who are in that succubus role do. It's like, if you're not a succubus, well, then you should be positive to your boyfriend. You should build your boyfriend up. You should tell your boyfriend that you love him. You should be kind and things like that, and you should be genuine. Now, I believe you can be that way even if you're a female and you have female nature. I believe that, yes, fundamentally female nature is kind of messed up, and we've learned all about it with hypergamy and all these